Kia ora koutou katoa and welcome along to another episode of Beyond the Hustle. Today I had the great privilege of sitting down with the beautiful wahine Janelle Riki, who is one of the proud owners of Riki Consultancy. We got to sit down and kōrero about her early years, growing up first of all in Western Australia and then moving over here to Aotearoa, and some of her experiences growing up knowing she was Māori but living in a world that really wasn't set up for her to experience success as Māori. We talked about some of the driving factors that led her to set up her own business and some of the challenges that came with that. And we also got the opportunity to sit down and discuss some of her experiences as a māmā of a pretty famous footy player. So if any of that stuff is interesting to you, then stick around and let's get into it. Ka pai. Tēnā koe, Janelle.
Tēnā koe.
Thank you very much for creating time in your calendar to come in and sit down with me on the podcast. I know you're a very busy person, so I really appreciate it.
I appreciate you asking. It's, any opportunity for a kōrero is a good one, I think, especially for coffee as well.
Coffee and kōrero, it's a good combo.
Yeah.
Look, I'm really keen to understand a little bit about, I guess, the early days. Can you tell me about your early days, your childhood, where you grew up? What do I need to understand about those early years to understand a little bit about the māmā, the wahine that's sitting in front of me today?
Ka pai. First of all, grateful there was no Facebook when I was growing up.
Tell me about it, right?
Holy.
I would be in a lot more trouble, I think, if there was.
Oh, my life. I don't even know if I'd have half the jobs that I've had in my lifetime if there was Facebook when we were teenagers. But so, he uri tēnei no te waka o Tainui, Ngāti Mahanga, Ngāti Tāhinga Okuhapu. Engari e Pākehā ana i konei ki o tautahi. I raro i te maru o te haukainga i konei, he mihi ka tika kia rātou, ngai tuahuriri, ngai tahu whānui. Ko Janelle Riki waka, tōku ingoa. I grew up, so I was actually, I don't actually say this very often. In fact, I've had people who've known me a whole lifetime and don't know this.
Okay.
I was born in Perth.
Were you? Interesting.
And I don't talk about it very much because obviously, like I pride myself on being a very patriotic Kiwi.
Yeah.
But
big Māori contingent over in Perth.
Huge, and that's exactly what happened.
Right.
Both my parents were there in Perth and met each other and had me. And so I was born in Subiaco, and I was in Australia till I was about 6.
Okay.
So when they decided to move home, and funny story, my mum and dad have got 4 kids and I'm the oldest. And I'm born in Perth, and then my mum came home, hapu, and had my sister here in Rangiora, where we predominantly grew up.
Yep.
And then went back to Aussie, and my other sister was born in Subiaco, and then came back to live for good, and my brother was born here. So we've got 2 Aussies, 2 Kiwis.
Yep.
And so born in Perth and came back when I was about 6 to live. Very thick Australian accent. And, going to school and not knowing what felts were and only...
Why?
Because they're texters.
What?
Texters.
Texters?
Yeah.
Another one of those words there.
100%.
I had no idea.
And it's the one word that I remember getting teased about,
right,
like at school when I went to kura, and they would go texters, and that was the one word I remember going, oh, what is the word then,
I had no idea. I've called them felts my whole life.
No, in Aussie, when I grew up at least, I don't know if they still call them texters, but they were called texters when I grew up. So my mum is a Rangiora girl, born and bred, and so we went back to live there with her whānau. So I'm a 90s goon girl, as they used to call us.
It's changed a lot these days.
Oh, yeah, it's ginormous now. It's beautiful. But I go there and I'm like, it's barely recognisable parts of it. I still feel really connected to there. My grandmother, who's one of my favourite people in the world, we lived across the road from her, and I went to Rangiora Borough and then Rangiora High School. And actually, it was funny. I was thinking about this on the way here. I was in the first Faro Class at Rangiora High School. Okay. And I've got a photo of it. And I think it was either 93 or 95. And
it's about the right era of whānau classes.
Yeah. And I took Te Reo Māori. I grew up knowing I was Māori, but not immersed in a Māori world. My dad didn't have much reo, and he is still of the generation where he was actually strapped at school for speaking reo. So he wasn't not proud to be Māori, but I just felt like it was just we didn't talk about it. We were Māori and it was cool, and lots of mum and dad's friends were Māori, and we had cousins that were Māori. And it wasn't probably until I went to school that like it became a label.
Right.
Like I don't remember thinking it was a thing. It was just me and it was just them, and it wasn't at school. You're Māori, and I was like, oh, okay.
And I guess being in the whānau class sort of put the spotlight on you. If you were in the whānau class, then you must have been different from everyone else, right?
Well, it was funny. So the whānau class came in, I think, when I was in fifth form.
Okay.
So the amazing...
That's year 11 for all the young people out there.
Year 11, yeah. So it was funny because it came about and I was like, yeah, I want to be in the whānau class. And so I had a hunger from an early age. I'd taken te reo, and I had a hunger to kind of understand who I was and connect with my Māoritanga. And if I was honest, I thought the Māori kids that I knew were cool as well. I was like, they're cool, and I kind of want to be cool. Yeah. I mean, some of them I'm still mates with today, and I want to, they know a lot more than me, and I want that, you know? So I kind of had this hunger for it. But when they brought it in, you had to do two things. You had to get permission from your parents because you had to shift from a form class to the whānau class. And it was multi-leveled. So you'd sort of meet every day or every other day in the morning or something. So you had to get permission from your parents, and then you had to get permission from your current form teacher. They had to sign a letter to say, to release you. To kind of release you, right? So I went home, talked to mum and dad, and they were like, yeah, cool, whatever, signed it. And when I went to my form teacher, I'll never forget this. I won't name her, but Pākehā woman, she said to me, why do you want to do that? And I said, well, I think it'll be really cool. And I'm taking te reo and I want to learn more, and we're going to do kapahaka and it's going to be really cool. And she was like, listen, Janelle, you're a good girl. And I was like, okay, thanks. And then she said, if you lie down with dogs, you'll get fleas. And I went, what? Like I didn't really understand. And I was like,
what are dogs for?
Yeah. I was like, 14. I was like, I don't even know what you mean. But I remember going home and telling mum what she said, and my mum kicked off. Kicked off. And can I just say, anyone out there who's got a Pākehā mum or a Pākehā parent, shout out to Pākehā mums, because my mum did a haka over any instances of racism in our life as kids.
And mum's Pākehā?
Mum's Pākehā. My mum was the one that did the haka. She would kick off about it. She would challenge it. She would do that out loud. We always saw her do it. And it took me a long time, it's not till I'm an adult, to realise why it was mum and not dad. And I genuinely believe dad was upset, but he would head down and you could see him feel angry and, upset. But he wasn't the one that did the haka, mum was. And I now know that mum didn't have to navigate trauma to be that person. Dad did.
Yeah.
He
probably had so many micro experiences like that throughout his life that he just learned, well, that's just the way it is.
100%. Whereas my mum didn't have that same trauma about being Māori and didn't have to wade through it to go and do a haka. So my mum did a haka of all proportion at the school. And it wasn't the only time that she did a haka on our behalf. And so I went into the whānau group. But I always remember that saying. And I don't remember it with anger or sadness. I just remember it with, man, I feel sad. I hope that woman got an opportunity to understand the depth of those words and the impact that they could have had I not have been a person who was like, whatever, lady.
Yeah.
I just want to go in the whānau class. Like, I don't care about your dumb words. My mum was more upset than I was. I just wanted to go in the whānau class. And I just was like, whatever, just sign the form. But I really hope that she found her way to understand how kennel that was.
Yeah.
But anyway, whānau class, it was kennel. And then did te reo Māori. And then when I was in fifth form, school cert year, my parents bought a pub.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Hospo.
They bought a pub. And my dad had been a barman, he'd been a freezing worker all my life, you know, and then he'd gone and he was a great barman. People always used to like, oh, he's fun and he's, you know, that smiling Māori. He's got total Billy T vibes.
Yep.
And they bought a pub and they drove us out there one day, and it was in the middle of the country, and it was in Sheffield. I don't know, Darfield, Sheffield, Springfield. So it was in Sheffield. And we drove out there and it was raining, and they said, this is the pub and we're all going to move out here. And me being an awful teenage, surly girl said, if you move me out here, I'm running away. I'm going to run away every day.
You weren't having a bar of it?
I was not having a bar of it. So Mum and Dad said, radio, it was 4th form year, that's right. They said, you can stay with your grandmother for a year, because they were worried about pulling me out school cert year. And so I did that, best year of my life, because anyone who's got nanas, hottie in my bed every night, my favourite kai cook, she just, it was just the best. But I made some friends during that year, and then in my 6th and 7th form year, I moved out to Sheffield. And I'd failed school cert, so any argument I had for staying another year with my grandmother was out the window. 100%. It was like, maybe if you'd passed, we could talk about this, but you failed, so out you come.
Yeah, fair enough.
So I did 6th and 7th form in Darfield, where I was we were one of maybe 2 or 3 Māori whānau in the entire Selwyn district. That's certainly what it felt like. But at our school, there was probably another 2 Māori whānau in the whole school at the time I was there.
Okay, so you had some allies?
A couple, a few. But what I'd come from Faro Class, I did school cert Māori, and so I passed school cert. It was about one of the only subjects I did pass in school cert.
Yeah, so you're good at that.
I was good at Māori, and I loved it. And then I came to the school, no deal teacher, a handful of other Māori kids. When I asked to do deal, because I'd passed school cert, I wanted to do 6th form. Yeah. They said you can do it by correspondence, which I tried for maybe a term. It was so hard. I didn't have the discipline. I'd just sit in the library and get hoha, and they had tapes. They'd send me all these tapes.
Yeah,
and,
no, I remember it.
It was just...
It's hard.
I just couldn't do it. And then I realised I was at an impressionable age. Like, I'm the only one learning Māori in this whole school, and, you know, I just want to fit in.
Yeah, peer pressure.
So if I'm really honest, I look back now and think I really did park my Māoritanga for those 2 years and just fit it in.
I did that.
Just fit it in.
I did that when I was at, because I went from kura kaupapa until the end of intermediate, so that'd be year 8 these days, and then went to Christchurch Boys. And it wasn't so much wanting to fit in. I mean, it was much more difficult to access te reo and tikanga, all that stuff that I just kind of just had to open my door and it was all there on my doorstep at Te Whānau. It was much harder to access that at Christchurch Boys, but also girls. Yeah. You know, sex, drugs, alcohol.
Yeah, parties. Hay barn parties.
Yeah, trying to be cool, trying to fit in. And often, well, in my experience, and it sounds like it's similar to yours, that Māoritanga stuff, it's easy to park it.
It was for me for 2 reasons. It was harder for me to access reo. They were going to leave it to me, park me in the library with some tapes and a book. Yep. So that made it harder. I didn't have the discipline to sit there for the hour and a half of my period and actually just do the work. I'd just muck around. So it became harder. It was all up to me. Nobody was supporting me, and nobody else around me was having a bar of anything Māori. So it became an easy choice. Yeah. It would be easy for me to say, gosh, I wish I'd had a stronger character. But actually, at that age, you just want to fit in. Yeah, you just want to, And it's funny because some of those friends that I have had then and still are mates with now, not everyday mates, but I still love seeing them. Yeah. Sometimes I think, and I've even remember some little comments like, oh, but then you became Māori. Right. You know what I mean? Like after we knew you, you weren't Māori when we knew you. And I'm like,
I always was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always liken it. I wrote a blog post once about the chameleon generation, and that's what I think we are. Right. Many of us, we just changed our colours according to our surroundings.
To fit in. It's interesting. I haven't heard that analogy before.
I certainly, that was true for me. I just turned it on and off when I needed to, until I didn't want to turn it off anymore, and I wanted to keep going and connecting and strengthening my Māoritanga. So yeah,
Now you're loud and proud.
100%.
You're out the closet.
That's 100% out of the closet, and really proud of my whakapapa. And I think probably what drove me was part an internal kind of yearning, and a feeling that something wasn't quite right. Like it just felt like it was missing. And it's funny, when I started doing consultancy work, I interviewed this young Māori girl one day, and I'd been working in her kura for a year, supporting her teachers with kaupapa Māori and strengthening their cultural capability. And at the end, I wanted to know if it had an impact. So I interviewed her, and she was about 11, and I had a film guy behind me, and I was sitting here like this, and I'm asking her questions. And I said to her, what does it feel like when you learn things Māori? And then she responded, and I burst into tears. Like just out of nowhere, I just felt it just come out of me. And I was like, stop the camera. And it's because she looked straight at me and said words that I had been looking for my whole life. And she was 11. And she said, when I said, what does it feel like when you learn things Māori? She looked at me, and you could see her thinking, and she goes, it kind of feels like my pieces fit together. And I just went, yes, that's exactly what it feels like. She just gave me the words for what I couldn't describe had been my own journey. That's what it feels like. It feels like my pieces fit together.
That was 11-year-old
11-year-old Janelle
speaking back at you.
And she even looked like me, and I just was like, I just remember being overcome. It still makes me upset because I just look at her and I was like, do you know how lucky you are to have come to that at 11?
Yeah.
I was in my 20s and 30s before I got that, and I would love to track her down and find out where she is, because she was just, she had the words that I wish I'd had.
And then talking about, that other generation, the generation of our parents, you're saying, do you know how lucky you are to have come to that realization at 11? I'm still looking for that as an adult, but then there's that other generation who, sadly, a lot of them never found it.
100%.
So that's 100%. Progress.
It is.
It's slow progress, but it's progress.
I'll never forget that wee girl. So my childhood was pretty much brought up in a Pākehā world with me taking every grasp I could of anything Māori and trying to hold on to it and trying to connect. And then I jumped on a plane with a one-way ticket to Western Australia when I was 19.
Wow. So you went back to where it all began.
Yeah. And then
what made you go back to Western Australia? You just if you're sort of yearning for this Māoritanga and you're 19, you kind of go, park that, let me go do something different?
It was a funny story because one of those sliding doors moments, right? So I guess I was just hoha. I was a teenager who I'd done a travel and tourism diploma straight out of high school.
Okay.
Pretty much failed everything in high school, like walked out with nothing.
Yeah.
Real Māori.
Yeah. School cert, real Māori.
That's about it. And home ec. And I remember my fifth form dean saying to me, what are you going to be, a Māori singing chef? And I was like, and these pivotal quotes, I was like, actually, probably make some good money doing that.
Yeah, definitely.
But because I passed music, that's right. I passed music, home ec, and Māori. They were the three things that I passed consistently through school, nothing else.
I was going to say, what you've just described is not too dissimilar to what I do, except I'm not a good singer.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know if I could make a career out of my voice, but I reckon if you put all three together, you might be all right. And I was kind of hoha, mostly because it's so easy in hindsight, right?
Yeah.
I just felt hoha with the world, with my friends, with my parents, with my life, and just felt hoha. I just wanted something different. And I look back now and realise I was not fulfilling my potential, like I was coasting and being mangere and just living day to day. And that's what was frustrating me, because I knew I could have been doing more and should have been doing more. And I can see now why I was frustrated. But at the time, I just felt mad at the world. And so I wanted to jump on a plane. So I bought a one-way ticket to Brisbane. And my mum had a friend there, and I thought, I'm just going to go stay with her. I'm going to get a job. Just go.
Figure
Aussie's where it's at. You know, like it's going to be awesome. So, and then the day before, had a big going away party, did the whole thing. The day before I was due to fly out, the airline that I'd bought a ticket on, Kiwi Air, went bust.
Oh, you're joking.
Yeah, overnight. And I'm sitting
your
in my
ticket's
kitchen.
worth nothing.
It's worth nothing. Sitting in the kitchen listening to the radio, Kiwi Air's gone bust. If you've got a flight with Kiwi Air, effective immediately, it's gone.
What are the chances?
I know. The day before. So I'm sitting and I'm crying. I'm like, oh, I've had the go away party.
Yes.
I've got to go somewhere.
I've got to do something.
And I'm carried on like a pork chop,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
And my cousins were on holiday.
Yep.
And my cousins lived in a place called Geraldton in Western Australia. And they were in New Zealand. They were at our house at the time. And they were like, come back with us.
Yep. Hitch a ride.
I was like, yep, done. So I went there and I lived in Gero for nearly 5 years.
Oh, wow.
And amazing. And my parents had been there when I was a kid. So it was quite nostalgic. But long story short, met my son's biological father and fell happy with Jordan. And who was also born, by then we moved to Adelaide, and he was born in Adelaide, so both of us are born in Australia.
Secret's out.
Yeah.
That's right. He's a Kiwi though.
Yeah, 100%.
And we're claiming him. So
I bought him home at 11 months old.
Okay.
So he literally had 11 months in Australia, and he's got New Zealand citizenship, in case anyone's wondering. So
awesome.
Yes, yeah. So bought him home.
Yeah. Oh, how good.
Yeah.
And then eventually, obviously, you rediscovered, like some of those friends said, you became more Māori, whatever terminology. But at some point, as an adult, you obviously decided, actually, this real Māori thing is something I want to do, take it a bit more seriously.
100%.
And really leaned into it.
Yeah. So I found myself a single mother of a 1-year-old. And
so Papa didn't come with you?
He did,
okay.
But it didn't last long. Okay. And if I'm honest, I needed to be home to get out of that. It was a really toxic relationship, but I couldn't do it without the support network. So that wasn't mentally in my mind, but I know now that I knew.
You came home.
100%.
That was part one of
what was going to come.
What was going to come.
So I found myself a single mum at 1 and thought, what am I going to do? So enrolled in teachers college and had to do summer school because, of course, I'd not passed anything at school, so I had to do summer school and got into teachers college anyway. So I trained to be a teacher and funnily enough graduated, and then Jordan and I both had our first days of school together.
Really?
Yeah. So he was 5 and I had my first day of teaching on the first day.
Not at the same kura, surely.
No.
Okay. But that's pretty cool.
It was cool, except also really sad because it was interesting. Different times, right? He's 25, so this is 20 years ago. I asked my principal in my new school, it was my first day of job, if I could drop my son to school.
I was going to say, it would have been hard to coordinate.
Yeah, and she said no.
Oh.
She said, no, you need to be here. You need to welcome your class, day 1, those kinds of things. So his koro was his number 1 man and has been in his life. I was a single mum from when he was 1. So his koro was a huge part of Jordan's life. And he took Jordan to school. And I tell this story all the time now because it's quite interesting when you look at the history of our nation and you look at the different generations and the impact that colonisation had on them. So when my dad's first day of school, he got strapped for speaking te reo and till his bum bled. And then he went home, ran away from school when it happened, and his dad gave him another hiding and said, learn the ways of the Pākehā. You need to, So in that first strap, and, no judgment on my koro either, because what wouldn't you do to stop your kid getting the strap, And, different times, right?
That's why that whole generation stopped speaking Māori to their tamariki 100%. Because they just knew they were setting them up for that.
Absolutely.
And who wants that?
100%. So now I look back and I go, trauma, the moment that strap hits my dad's nono. Bad being Māori, te reo's bad.
Yeah.
Go home, reinforce the trauma.
And you just make that you make that correlation, right?
100%.
Te reo being Māori equals pain, equals more pain.
Absolutely.
So
equals it's not a good thing. And my dad, the person I trust and love most in the world, is reinforcing that to me. So that was my dad's first day of school in 1955. Fast forward to me saying, can you take your number 1 moko, the most prized, important person in the world to you, on his first day of school, to a English medium school with not very many Māori. So I go, Dad, take him to school. Anyway, my phone is blowing up and it gets to morning tea it's Dad, and I've missed all these calls. And I ring Dad, and I'm like, what's going on? And he's like, I'm just letting you know I've brought Jordan home. He's not ready for school.
Couldn't do it.
And I said, what? What? And he goes, and I said, I can't talk to you about this now.
Yeah.
I'll see you after school, but holy. Yeah. So the teacher had also rung. And I said, can I ring
Jordan's
you after
teacher.
school? Jordan's teacher. And so I rang her after school. I said, what happened? And she goes, well, I don't really know. She goes, I'll just tell you what I think happened. And she goes, your dad brought him in. And like they did back then, and I don't know if they still do this now, they try and sort of get their parents out the door because the kids will cry and carry on. They're 5-year-olds, right? Like it's okay. They'll calm down once you leave, kind of thing.
Okay.
So Dad comes in and she says, you can go now. And he said, oh, I'm just going to stay. And she said,
no,
you need to go. And he goes, no, I'm staying. And so she just let him. So she was like, I just kind of.
Oh, she did let him stay.
Yeah, she goes, I let him stay. And so he sat and she said, leave when you want. And so Jordan sat on the mat having a great time. So Dad went to leave thinking, okay, he's okay.
He's settled.
As Dad left, Jordan cracked it, cried, grabbed his kōrero, holding on to him, cried.
Which most tamariki would do.
100%.
Yeah, that's not an unreasonable reaction.
100%. She comes over and goes, he's okay, and tries to take him. That was it.
That was the trigger.
Dad said, no. That's my moko. Get your hands off him. I'm taking him with me. Picked him up, grabbed his school bag and left. And so I go home after school and not making the correlation at that point. I'm just like,
what did you do?
You do this? Yeah. I just, I didn't. When I look at it now, I think the māmā and the trigger that would have been for him, the trigger of, you're hurting my moko, he's crying, he needs me, I'm not leaving him here. That, I feel awful for even asking him to do it. There's a part of me that feels really guilty for that because I'm like, man, I just made you sit in that trauma and bash it head on, and I
Hindsight,
feel awful about it. But when I got home, he goes, listen, I've got it sorted. Maybe he can try next year. I'll just take him home.
I'll look after him.
He goes, I'll just take him home. He can come back to the pub with me and he'll just hang out during the day while I'm working and we'll just take him home. He can go.
You're just like, what?
I was like,
no way.
No, he's 5. He needs to go to school. I'm his mother. You live 50 k's away. I live in the no, this is my decision. And to his credit, I pulled rank but that was, I think.
I can understand where he was coming from.
Now, like I said, I actually feel awful. And actually, as it turned out, I should have probably let him take it. His first year of school was horrific.
Well, sometimes
he was not ready. He just was not ready.
We do, but I mean, on that though, we do have these weird sort of markers. I mean, we're told, even if right back to when they're born, by this time they should be able to do this, and if they're not walking by this time, then take them to the doctor. And if they're not speaking by this age, then get their ears checked, or there's something going. I mean, we just have these weird markers. They should be sleeping in their own bed by this stage, and one of them is when they turn 5, they should be able to go to school.
100%.
Says who?
Absolutely. And and this is why I think, gosh, if you could go back again, it's one of those moments, you think, if you could go back again. His first year was horrific because he just didn't understand that you can't eat when you're hungry, and that, like, they would say it's handwriting time, and he'd go, nah,
no, I don't really
want to do handwriting. So he had this special card when he was at school, the only kid at his school that had it. And it came about because one day his teacher rang me and she said, listen, Jordan didn't finish his writing or his something. And she goes, so I told him he had to do it at lunchtime. And she goes, I'm just going to be honest with you, Janelle, I went to the staff room and ate my lunch and forgot about it. I forgot that he was in there. And she goes, and then I came back and went, oh my goodness, he's still here. And he hadn't been out at lunchtime. And she said, in all my life, she goes, it was like a bumblebee in a jar. The rest of the day, he was diabolical. His energy levels,
because he hadn't gone outside to run around.
So she said, we've got this new card, and the whole school knows about it. Anytime Jordan needs to, he can just show the card, no matter where we are, and he can run.
Just go for a run around the field.
And honestly, he'd just run laps and laps and laps and laps, and no questions were ever asked. It didn't matter what the subject was, what it was doing. As long as he was running, he knew the rules. If you use the card and don't run, then we're going to have a yarn.
Yep.
But he did. He'd just run laps and laps and laps and laps until he felt tired and felt better and felt calm and felt toe. And he would go back inside and sit down and do it.
It's probably for everyone's benefit, including him.
Yep. He did that till he was 10.
That's right. Well, it worked. He became very fit as a result. He did become very fit.
But you know what? Credit to them at that time, 20 years ago, to see, you know, like she said, bumblebee in a jar. She goes, it was the worst thing I could have done. I just didn't let him let off enough steam and kept him in, and he was diabolical. So, but the downside to that is often he'd go for a big run and then he'd come back and want to have more. He'd often fall asleep afterwards, and then he'd go, boom, straight back into it. But they just learned how to, you know, manage him in a way that meant he could get some learning done. And that's what every good kayako and kura should be doing, right? Yeah. So tell me about your business. So you set up Riki Consulting when, roughly? About we're in our 4th year now. Okay. How's it been? What made you want to set up a business for a start? Well, it was after teaching, I did my bilingual and immersion training, and then taught in bilingual and immersion education. Had my heart broken really from the education systems, because I'd started a unit and was the lead teacher in a bilingual unit at Aotearoa Primary School, and then the government shut it. Yeah. Well, shut it or merged it? No, shut it. Okay. Shut it, and actually, then shifted the bilingual unit to Burnside Primary under Matt Bateman at the time. Yes. And it eventually fell over because that community didn't support it and didn't want it. Yeah. Which we kind of knew was going to happen. Yeah. So I felt really disillusioned with the system. And then I went into English medium for another year or so, and then an opportunity came up to be a consultant with core education. And I spent 10 years with core, Aotearoa. They're still home to me. I love them very much, and really learned my craft in a way. And I believed that if I could affect teachers, I could help more Māori kids. Yep. That was my driver. The more teachers I help, the more Māori kids I can have a positive impact on. So makes sense. Absolutely. So did that for 10 years. And then, it just kind of became a time. Mm-hmm. There was nothing wrong. I loved my work. I loved working at core. Sometimes you just get to I think it's time. Yeah. And what else am I going to do? Yeah, things run their course. Absolutely. It just felt time. And I wanted to spread my wings a bit, somewhat naively, if I'm honest. I think I want to do this and that. And, you know, when you own a business, lots of that is much more challenging than you think. My brother was a lecturer at University of Canterbury at the time in Reo Māori, working, training teachers as well in kaupapa cultural capabilities reo. And so him and I have similar skill sets, and we were like, it felt like time. We teamed up and started Riki Consultancy, and it's been an amazing journey so far. So what is it that what's your core mahi? What is it that you sort of do? We predominantly, I guess, what we do is cultural capability, professional learning, and advisory services, and te tiriti education is a huge part of what we do. We do a little bit of mentoring and coaching. I work with some CEOs who are non-Māori, just supporting them. One in particular who's from Australia, who is now a CEO of a New Zealand company, and just like, what do I need to know, and how do I do this, and how do I make sure I'm not offending people? So that's been a real cool journey. So we do lots of that stuff. Effectively, though, like if you ask me what we do, that's kind of what we do. That's the thing that you do. That's the thing that we do. But why probably is the why we do it is twofold. The first is that there are Māori working in non-Māori organisations, whether that's schools, government departments, corporates up and down this country, who are not being supported to be Māori. And they are being a chameleon and parking their language, culture, identity at the door, and some of them aren't safe. So that drives me, because I'm like, we don't need to do any mahi on you. What we need to do is support the people around you to understand your superpowers and who you are, and what you are, and why you should feel like you should belong here in this organisation. So they drive me. And some of them, the other part of that is is like me but has not had the same opportunity or even maybe the inclination to connect to their Māoritanga. So I'm really keen on supporting the re-indigenisation of those Māori that have not walked in the Māori world or even dipped their toes in a really safe way, because that means you have to traverse a bit of your own trauma. So we do a program called Te Arata Whawhai, that's a re-indigenisation program for Māori, supporting them, and we do it in noho, and there's lots of tears and lots of laughter, and we talk about te tiriti and some of our history, and we talk about, like, let's just explain tapu and noa, because you know, I'm Māori but I don't really get it, and it's like, cool, lots of us don't, let's have a wānanga about it, you know. So Te Arata Whawhai is my heart program. It's what I get out of bed for, if I'm honest. And the other part of what drives me is, I'm just going to be straight up, the workforce ain't ready for your kid or my kid. The workforce ain't ready for our kura kaupapa kids.
What do you mean by that?
What I mean by that is they are, what I like to say, they have dual fluency, dual world fluency. They walk really confidently in two worlds. And, you know, in a sense, if they were talking to Te Ao Pākehā, they can say, I know what you know. You don't know what I know. You need me. I've got the edge. Now, they are so strong and so confident and so amazing. And I am so excited because they will change the world. But I work in every day at the coalface and in those organisations. They're going to break our babies, or our babies are going to break them if we don't do some mahi and do it quick, smart. Because we have this new kura kohanga gen, and they're not new. Lots of them are already in the workforce, but there's going to be en masse numbers in the next few years. Mass numbers.
What I will say, though, about this current gen that you're talking about, I reckon my observation is that they're different from, because I went through kura kaupapa and I was kind of like the guinea pig generation. And I reckon there is a difference today between our tamariki that are coming through those systems today versus the ones that were coming through the first wave. What I've noticed is that the first wave, which is me and my peers, we were of whānau who just wanted to try and reclaim their reo. So reo was the driving kind of force behind it. And a lot of mātu, a lot of parents just wanted to send their tamariki to kura to learn te reo Māori and a bit of tikanga and te ao Māori stuff. The whānau that are sending their tamariki to kura now are not just sending their tamariki to kura to speak Māori. And in many cases, there is reo Māori at home, and it's just becoming more and more like that. They're actually sending their tamariki to kura for a te ao Māori experience.
Absolutely.
And so the tamariki that are coming out, getting back to your point about being staunchly confident and proud to be Māori, they stand so confidently in their Māoritanga. They're not just tamariki who can speak Māori, but they're tamariki who live and breathe this ao Māori stuff.
Absolutely.
And they are actually a different beast.
They really are.
In a positive way.
Absolutely. And if I'm going to say this, and this could be controversial.
That's right.
In lots of ways, they're privileged.
Oh, 100%.
Because we surrounded them with Māori role models. Their role models are Hana Rāwhiti Maipi Clark and Pere, who's changing gender norms and haka. And, you know, when I grew up, I don't think I ever saw, until I was an adult, a Māori doctor, a Māori lawyer, a Māori police officer, anyone with mana, you know.
Those
they weren't Māori,
the
100%, they weren't Māori. Our kids don't have to look very far at all to find Māori lawyers and doctors and police officers and judges and, you know, athletes. And
those ones often are rubbing shoulders with them. Not only are they seeing them, they're actually rubbing shoulders
100%,
with them. Like they go to kura reo, and they're there.
100%.
They go to these hui and they go to matatini and
they get to meet them.
Sometimes stand on the stage with them.
Absolutely. So these kids are discerning. So my generation, my dad, you know, was of the generation, you're lucky to have a job. You do what you're told, head down, bum up, work hard, turn up on time, be diligent. You know, that was that was their whakaaro to us.
Reality.
So we parked our culture at the door for a job, for a paycheck. We realised the job is the thing. Whatever you need from me, I'm going to be that. These tamariki, hell no. no, I'm Maldi, and if that's for you, cool. If it's not, I'm out.
Yeah.
And this is who we are. This is who we are. And I love that. But here's what I'm thinking. I look at the workforce now and I'm like, you need that. I know you need that because I can see inside behind the curtain. I know what's happening in your organisation. It's not saying it's bad, just it's vanilla.
And this would really help.
And this would really help. This is an asset to your business hugely, but they ain't going to stay for this. So you just need to get ready. And so I'm in there trying to be disruptive.
Yep.
I'm in there saying, if you get these kids, you should be so lucky if they choose you.
Yep.
But if they do, this is not the tahi. What you've got going on here, they're not going to stay. This is not going to be for them. They will want a sense of belonging to this organisation. They will not compromise on some things that at the moment
not up to par.
Are not up to par. So I honestly, I say all the time, I work for my mokos, my unborn mokos. I don't have any at the moment, but I work for them, but I get paid by someone else because I'm in here trying to clear as much space as I can so that when they come in, that organisation is going to cherish them and it's going to genuinely go, man, you're the best. That is your superpower. Everything you have grown to be is going to be such an asset here, and we're so grateful to have you. And also, how do I create a pathway for you to get to my job? Because I'm sick of Māori banging their head on the glass ceiling of middle management out in some of our organisations. I see it all the time. Yeah. They get to here and then it just stops.
Yeah.
Why don't we have more Māori? Why are we importing CEOs from Australia? Why don't we have more Māori in the CEO rooms? Why don't we have them in leadership positions? Why don't we have them on board positions? And, we're getting there.
Yeah.
But these kids are knocking on you've seen your year 13s.
Yeah.
They're in the workforce potentially next year.
They're amazing.
They're amazing. And they're going to change the world. And I'm like looking at the workforce going,
world ain't ready.
You guys aren't ready. You don't understand what's coming for you. They're privileged because we made them privileged, and we're okay with that because we wanted them to their privilege has been the continued unbroken access to language, culture and identity. That's what they've been privileged to have.
You're so right.
You wanted to learn reo when I was a kid. You had to have a reo teacher, which was as rare as hound's teeth to find.
Or correspondence.
Or walk across the road and have a look at Nana's encyclopedias to live. We didn't have Māori television. We didn't have the abundance of reo Māori YouTube clips and waiata on YouTube. You want to learn something Māori now, honestly, you've got no excuse. Yeah, it's everywhere.
Yep.
And so Dame Whenama, they dreamed us up and then they raised us to be the kind of parents that brought this next generation into the world. And I love that. But I'm worried for them. I don't want them to be hurt because the workplaces aren't going to honour them. And you know what? Maybe I don't need to be. Maybe they're just like, hurt. I don't care. Māori entrepreneurism is going to go through the roof because I think they will, which is great, because I think they'll realise I don't want to work here in this kind of space. I'm going to go do my own thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it means you and I will hire Māori as well, right? Yeah. Like if that's where we will, because we will create spaces that Māori can call home and they want to be part of that. And the stats are out, Māori business owners are hiring more Māori than non-Māori business owners, and that's just fact. So, yeah, it's a really interesting time, and I'm being a mother and I'm nesting. Yeah. I'm like, how do I make this all, the mother in me is like, my Taita Grace and your mana. I'm like, how do I make this place ready so that they come in and they soar and not feel in it or in any way be negatively impacted. Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
Big job, big North Star.
And I'm not the only one. There has to be, we all have to do this, mahi, but it is a big job, but I am excited for it. And if I can just clear enough space, they'll make their own, they'll bang down the walls themselves. I don't need to do that. I just need to go, hey, see this? See how your JD says must have A, B, C, D, E, F, G? What about if it says competency in reo Māori considered a huge advantage? What about if it says deep understanding of the practical application of te tiriti o waitangi considered a massive advantage? What if it said that on bullet point 1 and 2? And then after this, some other stuff. because our kids will look at that job.
Yep.
They're not going to look at this one. And you want them here. Trust me, you need them here.
Yeah, and you want I guess, organisations to understand that having these people in your organisation is only going to make it so much better.
Absolutely.
And if te reo Māori and deep understanding of te tiriti and tikanga and te ao Māori, if that not gets you to the front of the line, but it's something that's acknowledged and appreciated, that's only going to be a good thing. You're only going to attract a better quality applicant, right?
You know, one of the things I say to non-Māori CEOs and leaders about their Māori employees, I say to them, listen, I'm going to let you in a secret that you might not get, but we just get innately. Māori serve Māori first. Every day, all day. And what I mean by that, when I explain it to them, is if you're Māori and you work in a workplace, let's say you work at Department of Fun.
Insert.
Yeah. Department of Fun. Let's call it Department of Fun. You work at Department of Fun, and something goes wrong in terms of an act or that is kino towards a Māori world. I said, do you know that your Māori employees have the responsibility of answering to the Māori world for what you do? And they're like, what do you mean? And I said, we'll get accosted on the netball court, at the hui, in the supermarket, your bloody workplace. You fellas, what's going on in it? You're in there. Why aren't you fixing it? Why aren't you doing something about that? Where were you when that happened? And I said, not all of it's an accusation, but we're seen as their hono in. And so actually, and I really want CEOs to understand this and leaders to understand this, I hope they understand they have a responsibility to protect the reputation of their kaimahi Māori in the Māori world. And the huge impact that can have. And it came home to me in two places. I won't name them, but an organisation did something kennel, and it was all through our social media feeds, right? And I met with the CEO, and it wasn't him. It was others around him. And he said, it's awful. Like, I can't believe this has happened. This is not what I believe. This is not, So it wasn't him. And he said, out of all of this, though, Janelle, the hardest thing is I've just met with our Māori staff. And he said, some of them said to me, my parents and my whānau don't want me to work here anymore, so I'm handing in my resignation. And I said to him, I'm so sorry that's happened, but do you get why? And also, when I talk to all CEOs, I'm like, do you know what? If our whānau turn up and say, you're out now, we're gone. I said, within reason, if we cross a line in the Māori world and I work for you, that impacts me. And there is a line I will not cross because I'm Māori first and I serve Māori first, always.
It's one of the hardest positions, I think, to occupy is working for, well, let's just say for the Crown, but this could apply to any organisation, but especially our whānau that work for the Crown, especially when the political climate is what it is today. I mean, such a hard place because, hey, everyone's got to put food on their table.
100%.
Everyone deserves the opportunity to be able to do that.
100%.
But when you're working for a ministry or a department of insert name who is putting out all of this anti-Māori stuff, and often you're a minority within that department, it's such a hard place. I mean, I've seen Dad do it for most of his life, working in the health space.
And thank goodness for people like him.
Well, that's right. We need those people
them
on the
there,
inside.
But also, how are we taking care of them? And that's my message to these CEOs. You need them there. We need your dad in the job. And thank goodness he has been, because sometimes I'm sure he's been the lonely voice, And you and I have both got mates that work in public service, and you can see it in their eyes. You can see the pain of towing the line,
Well, look, I mean, we've been, as a kura, butting heads with the Ministry of Education for basically, from day dot, but in particular over the last 15 years trying to get a rebuild. And I do have aroha because we have whānau in the kura who work inside of that system. It's such a talk about a rock and a hard place.
It really is. It really is. But everyone will have their line. Māori will have their line.
Yes.
And that's a thing that most Pākehā don't have to grapple with is this responsibility to the greater good, to our people. And so when I explain that to CEOs, they're like, wow. The best story I ever heard, I was telling this in a session, and there was a young, I say young, but probably 20s, in her 20s, Māori girl.
That's young.
Yeah. She came up to me and she goes, oh my God, Janelle, what you just said. She goes, I've got to tell you this. Now, she worked for the Ministry of Justice, which I think has got like 4,000 employees because it counts, prisons and everything, right?
Okay, yeah.
So, she works in accounts, and she works in Pōneke, in an accounting sort of team for the Ministry of Justice. Huge teams. Her nan, she said, my nan rang me a couple of weeks ago and says, Bub, your cousin, he's in prison in Dunedin, and I told them that you work for justice and you need to go sort it out. And she said, Nan,
I can't do that.
First of all, I'm in Pōneke. Second of all, I work in accounts. And I cracked up laughing.
Cute,
so cute. Because how real is that, right? And so I need to be the voice of Māori employees to their boss. I can say some stuff, honestly. I can say some shit, drop the mic and walk out. But they will come up and go, oh my God, thank you.
Thanks for doing that. I've been wanting to say that.
I've been wanting to say that, but they don't get it. I'm so pleased it was you. So that's why I believe my job's important. I will always serve Māori by supporting Pākehā to know better and do better. That's my job.
Cool. I love that.
Yeah.
Good on you.
Any racist comment, I don't even get shocked. I hear all of them on the daily. And every time I hear them, I do have people say, how do you cope with that? My response is always this. If I'm hearing it, then your son and my daughter aren't.
Yeah. So you take it so that they don't have to.
I'll take the hit, because if you give it to me, then I can go, kapai, I'm pleased you brought that up. Let's have a
Let's
wahine.
discuss.
Let's have a kōrero. And if I can do that work, that's what I mean by clearing a space for those kids coming through.
Nice. Worthy cause, e hoa. Now, your son's pretty famous.
He is.
He's a pretty famous NRL player. Shortly is going to play his 100th game. There aren't too many people, first of all, that even make the NRL, let alone play 100 games, which is pretty cool. I'm really interested to know, as a māmā, you've already talked about you've been a single māmā basically since the beginning. You've walked alongside him for the whole journey. He's been over in Australia, I think, since his late teens.
Yeah, 17.
17. I'm really interested to know your experiences, and I'm sure there are many, but what are some of the experiences that you have as a māmā of an amazing, famous footy player playing in the NRL?
It's so weird in the sense of I look at him, even at 25, and I see a 10-year-old to the point where he gets really mad at me because I'll say something like,
have you brushed your teeth yet?
No, but I also,
the classic māmā stuff.
It's like I can't see him. Like I just see that he's got the same eyes and the same face and the same, he just seems like a 10-year-old. And I will say to him, just been up to watch him actually in tamariki, and I said to him, man, Zave's tall, eh? I think it was Zave, I said. And he goes, yeah. And I said, he's bigger there. And he goes, he's not, Mum. And I was like, no, he's huge.
Yeah, but you're only 10. You're not big.
He goes, Mum, he's literally like that much bigger. No, he's way bigger. And so I just see him as a 10-year-old. But
fair enough.
It's been a journey. Look, Jordan is Jordan to me, and NRL is what he does. Yeah. It's his job. And I remind him of that constantly, because it is a very easy world when you're in it to become that thing as an identity. So Janelle Riki, the NRL player, is not his identity, it's his job. And I'm constantly like, hang on a minute, no, that's not real. You're Jordan. Yeah. And what you do is you play league. It's your job, it's not your identity. And that's because the world is it's so fast, and it's not real. Like lots of it's not real. There's real people in it, but lots of it's like that's not a real life. And, he had a short experience in a public health system recently. And this is me, like, my job is to keep him grounded. So he comes home, I make him mow the lawns. I don't care who he is. I don't care how much money you make. You do the same thing all of your other siblings do. But he had a recent experience in the public health system, and he said something to me like, man, the service here has been terrible. And I said, are you joking?
This is what everyone has to deal with.
This is what most of us have to deal with on a regular basis. Like, I'm a keep it real, mum. And he straight away realised as soon as he said it, he was like, oh, whoops, you're right, mum, And I was like, this is real life. Just because your doctors are only seeing you and nobody else.
You don't have to wait in the waiting room.
But look, I parent the kid and not the NRL player. And I do that to this day. I'm his closest person. I'm his rock, but also the person that he bangs everything against, good and bad. Like, I get the happy phone call as well as the ventings, as well as that, like good and bad, I'm the person. And I think I've become the thing that anchors him to the real world. So when this gets crazy and unbelievable and I'm feeling alone, he will anchor. I'm okay, I'm just Jordan, and it's okay, and that's my mum and that's my dad and my brothers and sisters and my whānau, and the world is good, and then he can go out again. So I've had to be a tether to the real world. But parenting him, if I'm honest with you, I parented an NRL player from age 10. He
always knew, or you always knew?
This is a really good question, because I do get asked about this. Did I always know he was going to be an NRL player? This is how I'll answer this. So Jordan played rugby for a bit. I took him to rugby because single mum, and Burnside Rugby Club was around the corner. So he played 2 seasons, but they weight classed it. And he was huge. He was a big kid.
Has he always been a big?
Oh, yeah, always.
For his age?
Absolutely. Always been a big kid. And I had an experience at rugby where Jordan would run through everybody, even at Ripper, because he was huge and strong, and he had a lot of running practice at school.
Oh, yeah, he just ran all day, apparently.
So he would score 10 tries a game, like he was just really good. And a parent physically pulled him off the field of the opposition team. Physically, mid-game, pulled him off the field and was like, there's no way this kid's old enough, he shouldn't be playing, blah, 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 blah. And it was so distressing to me. And I'm there by myself with my son, and I didn't do anything about it. It's one of my life's regrets, those moments where you wish you'd stood up. And I was young and mum and just...
Probably in a little bit of shock as well.
100%. And
they're not really moments that you prepare for.
And so pulled him out. Told my dad, as I do, and he was like, that's it, he's not going back to rugby, take him to league. He's too big. And in league it's not going to matter, because even little kids can tackle in league. So literally enrolled him in league the next week. Took him to league. He played 1 quarter of his first game of league at 6, came off the field. He looked up, I can still see his face with those big eyes, and he said, I'm never playing rugby again.
He loved it, eh?
Cool. It was like he had I saw it in him. He just found home. He was just like, this is the best game I've ever played in my life.
Found his thing.
So pretty much from then, I raised an NRL player, because at 7, he was like, I'm going to be an NRL player. And he would say it every day without fail till he got on the plane at 17. And even when he got to Australia, I'm going to be an NRL player. And I did the mum thing of, oh, but what if it doesn't work out?
Hedge your bets,
100%. Well, maybe you should do this, and maybe you should, we still need to pass school, and it's really hard to be an NRL player. And I did all of that, and he would go, nah, I don't need a fallback plan. I don't need a plan B. I'm going to be an NRL player. And it used to scare me. I've come to realise that maybe that's actually what it takes. Maybe the ones that make it are the ones that do it at all costs with no plan B. I don't know.
Well,
because I don't think like him. I'm not him. He's phenomenal. I don't have what he has. Otherwise, I would have been a superstar of some sort.
Oh, you're a superstar in your own right.
Yeah,
don't sell yourself short. But I know what you mean. You might not know this, but when he came back for his Kiwis debut, which was in Ōtautahi, that must have been pretty cool to play in his hometown. I believe it was you. Obviously picked him up from wherever he was staying and said, right, you got a day off. We're going to go and do all this community work. And one of the things that you did was you brought him along to kura, where my son was at that day. And I didn't know about this. I don't know if anyone knew about it.
He didn't know either.
Oh, he didn't know.
When I picked him up to get in the car.
Yeah.
I do it every time he's home.
Yeah.
I take him to a school or a something.
Well, that kind of, you touched on it earlier when you said when he's home, he mows the lawns,
Absolutely.
he does the dishes, whatever. I mean, it's that grounding piece, right?
Yeah.
But you both turned up to kura, and again, I didn't know about it, but my son, Mana, who looks up to anyone who plays in the area and just absolutely adores him, especially people that look like him who grew up in his neighbourhood, like Jordan, came home. Jordan has signed his bag, which is a whole nother story. He's actually forced me to buy a purple Sharpie, which is the colour that was obviously floating around when Jordan signed it, and he's gone over that signature and the words at least twice. So it's a real taonga. But anyway, one of the pātai that was asked that day of Jordan was something like, did you always know you were going to be an NRL player, or what was your plan B, or something like that? And without missing a beat, he said something like, I always knew, or I was never not going to be an NRL player. And he said it with such conviction, I'm told, I wasn't there. That moment really stuck with Mana, and he came home and he said that to me, told me that story. But, there must have been something in him. He just never doubted it.
And it scared me. It scared me, that level of all his eggs in one basket. That's all I kept thinking as a mum. I was frightened of it.
Yeah.
And so when you said to me, did I always know? I always knew from the minute he looked at me with those eyes when he was 6, I always knew he could be an NRL player. But I never allowed myself to entertain the thought that he would. And the reason that I did that, I just never allowed myself. I was like, you can, 100%. I don't have an ounce of disbelief that you couldn't be an NRL player, but I never went, you will be, because I just never wanted, if it didn't turn out, I never wanted him to think that he'd let me down, that I had this expectation or this will that he would do that. I just didn't want to be a person. He would have to live with his own, traversing his own feeling of not making it if he didn't make it, and dealing with whatever feelings that might have brought up for him. I didn't want him to think I wanted that for him.
Yeah.
I wanted him to be happy. I want him to have a great life, full stop.
Yeah.
If that's an NRL player, great. If it was mowing lawns, great. Whatever. You're not going to let me down, bub, if you don't do this. I was never going to be that person. Right up, there's a video that my best mate took of me, and it's not a great video in terms of quality, but it's my favourite, and every time I watch it I cry. There's a video of when he debuted, and he debuted during COVID, so none of us could be there.
Debuted in the NRL for the Broncos? Okay.
So debuted for the NRL, first game.
During COVID?
During
I
COVID.
didn't realise that.
Yep. So he went on the field to no crowds.
Oh, stink.
He was in the bubble.
Yep.
So we couldn't go. We missed his debut. We missed his 21st because it was all during COVID. So we didn't see it for nearly 2 years. 2 years. Yeah. Man. So anyway, when he debuted, I rang all our close mates in whānau and said, let's watch it together. Yep. He's playing this weekend. So we hired the outdoor area of the Harewood pub and went down. And of course he didn't start. He came off the bench. And there's a video of him running on the field when he came off the bench. And I am just squealing like a child, like, oh my God, he did it. And everything on my face, that is the moment I went, he's an NRL player.
Yeah.
But up until then, it was always just like, yeah, if you do, that's great, bub. Every achievement he ever did, he would come home and go, I'm really proud of you. But I just didn't ever want him to think that this was my dream, because it wasn't. I wouldn't have chosen this for him, especially now. Like now that we've been through the journey, I wouldn't have chosen this for him. But that's what he chose, and I'm here for it, and I will be on his sideline. I'll be his loudest cheerleader forever.
Yep.
But I'll be his cheerleader for whatever he does.
Yeah, regardless.
Yeah.
It sounds like a difficult balance to strike, where
it is.
You show unwavering tautoko and support, because this is what your son wants and has wanted since the day apparently he ran on the field at the age of 6. So that unwavering support, but at the same time, this is not the path to my love. regardless of what you choose.
Absolutely.
The love is unconditional.
Absolutely.
But then I guess also knowing back in the back of your mind, statistically, this is a really difficult thing to be able to achieve, to be able to run on,
100%.
to make that squad of 30.
Yeah.
Because I've seen, I had a sit down with Phil, and a lot of the stuff that we talked about didn't make the final cut, but he showed me some of the statistics behind the culling that goes on to actually make that 30 squad is so difficult.
So I think from New South Wales Cup and Q Cup, which is the grades below NRL, 2% of them make the NRL. To make those teams, if you're a Māori kid from Christchurch, it's
huge.
So I kind of never entertained the idea. Like if you said to me, "Can you see him in an NRL jersey?" I would have gone, nope. Yeah. I just didn't let myself do it. I can see my kid being happy. I can see my kid living his dreams. I wanted it for him because I knew how much he wanted it. That was my only desire. It was everything to him that it scared me. Yep. So I really wanted it for him. I was like, please let this be, please, for you, because I just couldn't bear the sort of how disappointed he would have been.
And probably you had in the back of your mind, I need to prepare myself in case this doesn't
100%.
happen. I got to be ready to not pick up the pieces, but deal with whatever the fallout is, right?
To the point where I used to plant little things in his head, like, but if you don't make the team, what we could do is we could do blah, blah. Like I used to almost try to prepare him, which sounds toxic, right? But it was a preservation thing. Like the thought of what this would do to him if he didn't made me feel sick. And I was like, how do I prepare him if this doesn't come off? Like I think it will, and I really want it to. But if it doesn't, as a mum, how am I going to do this? Because everything, he lives, breathes, sleeps, dreams. There's no plan B. Everything he had is in this. And it frightened me. But he did it. And then that makes me, people say to me all the time, you must be so proud of Jordan. And my response is always the same. I'm really proud of the man he is. Yeah.
That strikes me as more important to you.
Oh, way more, way more. In fact, like he scores a try and I'm like, that's awesome. Woohoo. Someone comes to me and goes, oh, Jordan went out to the hospital and saw some kids in the cancer ward. And I'm like, oh, he's such a good boy. That is everything to me,
I get that. Not nowhere near on the same scale, but whenever my tamariki, because my tamariki are high achievers in certain areas, and whenever they do something high achieving, I clap for them and I think that's great. But, so my son, Mana, loves playing rugby league, scores tries regularly, and I love watching him play, and it's great when he scores a try, and the athletic ability and all the rest of it is really, really cool. But I'm always really interested in what he does after that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, what he does after the game.
Yeah.
Who he goes and talks to.
Yeah.
Those things matter more to me
100%.
than the try. You can score 5 tries,
and
if you're sitting there like a clown celebrating, we're going to have words. Either now, in front of all your friends, or after the game.
And he will have moments because Jordan did. So my rule from 6 years old, be the first to training, be the last to leave, help the coach pack up,
100%,
and say thank you every training. Because that guy doesn't need to be there to coach you. He's probably got a kids and a job and whānau, and he's a volunteer. He's there to help you. You say thank you. He gave his time up for you. So you or her, so that were my rules. And his coach, Madge, tells me he still does it.
Yeah, good.
Madge goes, he's the first on the field, last to leave, always puts the bags away and always says thanks to the trainers, to everybody. And I'm like, cool. My job, that was my thing, right?
Yeah.
But
that's
he had
moments,
stuff.
100%. Not the player, but the man. Hey?
He had moments though where they were life lessons. One of them, and it's the one and only time, he got picked in a South Island Scorpions team, and he was young, much younger than everybody else, and wasn't expected to make it, but he made it. And they had a tourney in Wellington, and we flew up to go and watch it, my husband and I, and we were there, and he was cracking it, came over to talk, only to us, not out loud, but he was cracking it, like, I'm not even playing, and I'm sitting on the bench, and blah, blah, blah. And he says to this day, he goes, Mum, I never forgot that. I leant over to him and I said, you don't like the bench? Be better. And he went, and I said, honestly, bub, if you're going to sit on the bench, you need to be the best bench person there is. You should be cheering and yelling and screaming. But if you don't like it, make yourself so you can't be not picked. That's the truth. Because at the end of the day, you could be 6 years old. If you're the best player on that team, you get in on the field. And it was a harsh lesson. But what I was trying to say to him is, don't whinge.
Yeah.
Don't whinge. This is the life you chose.
Yeah.
Like, I'm that mum. I'm like, you don't like it, then you do something about it. I also used to say to him, he always, like, and he still does it now, he picks a person that he sees as a benchmark. And he did it from a real young age. And he had this, like, his nemesis, who he was mates with. But he would be like, that guy there, he's a great second rower. He runs faster, he tackles faster. And Jordan would pick him as his benchmark. And he would do anything to be better than that person. Not to whakahihi, like, or even to trample on that person's mana, because that's how much mana he gave them.
Yeah. So it was
You're
aspirational.
that good that I'm going to be better than you. Yeah. And he would do everything. And he used to say, and I'd said to him a couple of times, what would insert name be doing right now? He'd be running.
So what are you doing?
What are you doing? Go for a run.
Love it.
And he says now, even now, he visualizes they're probably in the gym. They're probably kicking. They're probably doing this. They're probably on the tackle bag.
I wonder if he still does that now.
He does.
Oh, he does.
Yeah, and I know who his current person is.
Probably one of the greats.
Well, every year he tells me, he'll say, Mum, I want you to know who my person is this year. It's this person.
Interesting. Cool.
And that is in part because his personality type, ultra competitive. So that works for him. That wouldn't work for everybody. It works for him. Yeah. And so me saying those things to him, like, you don't like the bench, be better, works because Jordan's competitive. And he would go, well, I'll take that challenge.
Yeah, I'll show you.
And I will be better and I'll never ride the bench again. And he didn't for a long time. Yeah. But, you know, everyone has to ride the bench. So they're going to have moments where they are not the man that you know. So when he's cracking it at me, I'm on the bench, he was acting like spoiled, selfish, like, and I was like, oh, this is not who I've raised. I raised you to be a good sport and all of this. Yep. And there were a couple of other moments where I was mortified. But I actually think he needed them to go on and be a better man.
Yeah. Last time we caught up, you said something to me that really stuck. And I shared with you, and I've shared with the world, you know, I have a son who just wants to be an NRL player. Whether he has the same level of commitment that Jordan had when he was 10, I don't know, but he really wants it. Talks about it all the time. And when I sat down and talked to you about it, you said something to me. You said, if Mana wants to be an NRL player, you, as an I, have a role to play here to prepare him for that. Yeah. And I think the words that you used was something like, you're going to have to harden him because the NRL is not a kind place all of the time. No. What did you mean by that?
Yeah, it's one of those things that you wish weren't true. And as a mother, as a woman, from one parent to another parent, I wish I didn't have to say, but it is true and I do mean it. What I mean by that is whether it's NRL, professional league or whatever it is, those spaces, everybody in them has an agenda. Everybody. Coaching staff, training staff and agents and managers and other players, as they should. That's their livelihood. They have their own agenda.
And it's professional.
100%. But in a world where you are in the top 2% of anything, and these people are, because they're elite at whatever they do, elite coaches, elite trainers, elite doctors, you know, whatever. When you are in the top 2% of the world, you had to do some shit to get there and you had to do whatever it takes. And so as much as you like people and as nice as you are, you'll stand on anybody to get where you are because that's in part some of the mentality you need to have. And Jordan found that early on. At 17, to go into that world where people like me, but the guy that like I'm mates with on the sideline would, you know, snap my legs to get my jersey.
Right.
They wouldn't. But you know what I mean?
I know what you mean.
So, like, here's an example. He goes over at 17. He was a big fish in a little pond. You know, he was NZRL under 16 player of the year.
When he left.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, he was player of the tournament in his last 2 New Zealand tournaments, New Zealand schoolboys, and he was captain, and he was arguably one of the biggest fishes in the pond at rugby at that age at that time. Rugby league, sorry. And he goes over there and he goes into the Broncos. First of all, hardest year of his life, hardest year of my life. So there's homesickness. But he found himself alone a lot, which is just unheard of. And he found himself playing in a team where the other players wouldn't pass him the ball because he's a Kiwi and he's there to take someone else's jersey. So they'd just skip him out.
Wow.
In fact, they'd run around him to not give him the ball because they've all been playing together for years.
Yep.
They all know each other. They've got each other's backs. They want to make sure that their mates make the team. Who's this guy? He became the smallest fish in a very big pond. He rode the bench because the coach doesn't, I don't know who you are, I don't care who you are.
And I haven't seen you perform at training because no one passes you the ball. All right?
Absolutely.
Ruthless.
So he's in this world coming from me and koro and nanny and aunties and uncles on the sideline every week to I'm all by myself and nobody gives a shit. And they're all looking at me like I'm there to take their best mate's girlfriend, which is the jersey, effectively. Yeah. The coaches don't know who I am. I'm living in a house with people who have whānau around or friends because most of them are Australian and I don't have any, and I'm sitting in my room by myself at 17, homesick. So that world is not what I raised him for.
Yeah.
I didn't see it coming. And he hurt. And so I hurt. And he was lonely and he was disillusioned and he was faced with all these people who didn't have the agenda that I did, which is just you and your happiness. And in fact, he didn't really have anybody who just cared about him. Like the pastoral care staff at the club had 50 players, and so everybody had these agendas, not all bad agendas, just not him.
Their own agenda, though.
Absolutely. So the pain that I saw him go through, and is pain that would break most people. And to this day, if you ask me what his greatest achievement is, it's the first 12 months of being in Australia, actually. Yeah. Because to not break and still be there at the end of it, I broke in his first 12 months, broke.
What got him through, do you think?
It was really interesting. My husband and I used to hang up the phone from talking to Jordan and I would break my heart for hours. But then if he rang back, I'd be like, hi, bub.
Yeah. So you were his rock.
100%.
You had to keep a straight face.
Straight face. I never cried. I did that all behind closed doors. So what kept him going is I knew when to be empathetic and loving and then when I had to be tough guy.
Yeah.
And when I was tough guy, I would listen and I would console him and I would love on him. And then I would get to a point where I'm like, you can't keep doing this. Like you have to snap it. Like, because otherwise come. And so I would be like, rightio, what do you want to do, bub?
Yeah.
You want to keep going or you want to come home? I'll buy you a plane ticket. I can have you out of there tomorrow. You can land back here by tomorrow night, tea time. I'll ring the club. I'll ring Hornby, your club, and say you'll be back at league training on Tuesday. We'll find you a job. One of your mates works in the freezing works. Nothing wrong with that. But what I was trying to say is
these are your choices.
Yeah. You're either going to stand up in this and not let this break you and go get that dream, no matter how much you're hurting, no matter how lonely you are, no matter how isolated you are, go get it. Or you come home and there's no shame in that, and you come home and you be supported and you find another way to live. And every time I said it to him, you could see him calculating it. He just knew he couldn't do that. He would go, radio, talk to you tomorrow.
Yeah.
And we'd go through the same thing the next day. It was so.
But that's the hard that you were talking about.
And I kept thinking if I could have made you a little harder, if I could have prepared you better, not everyone's going to love you, bub.
Yeah.
not everybody just cares about you.
It
you know?
strikes me as, going back to what you said earlier on about our tamariki coming through this system, and we put them in this bubble of awesomeness, and we look after them.
Yes.
Only to, they turn 18 or end of year 13 or whatever, and then they step into this world that isn't really ready to receive them. I'm just wondering if what you experienced, what you've just described, in some way is influencing why you care so much about Riki Consulting, because the work that you're doing is not for Jordan this time, but it's for that whole generation that's coming out of the school, out of kura, and we're stepping into this world that is not ready to receive them. And you're kind of going, I don't think the answer is to make you harder, because what we've built over here for you is amazing.
And I wouldn't have undone Jordan's childhood and the love that he had.
But so if I can't make these tamariki harder, because we don't want to.
No.
You're awesome as you are. Come as you are. That's amazing. That's enough.
Yeah.
But we do need to prepare these, in your case, it's these businesses, corporations, to receive them and be a bit nicer, a bit softer.
Absolutely.
And a bit more understanding. I wonder if that is in some way, why that means so much to you. I wonder if it's in some way shaped by what you went through.
Do you know what? I almost feel like you've banged the nail on the head, because I even use the words when I described it to you, like I'm like a mama bear. Like I honestly feel like it's almost my second go at it, because I couldn't change the NRL that was happening. And there was so much goodness in there. But I had surrounded, as we do, our kids with love and support, and he was never alone, and he was never having to do grocery shopping by himself, and he was never sitting alone in his bedroom on a weekend, and never having, if he had to compete with somebody, he had me to talk to about it, and I was watching and I could talk with him about the game, and all of a sudden he found himself on his own, and I couldn't be there. So the first year that he was away, it was recommended that I don't go, because I was his heart. And
who recommended you?
People around him.
Okay, so they recommended don't come over.
Don't come over.
Yeah.
Because it's too hard, and you just need to toughen him up, and he needs to be. In fact, one person around him actually used the exact words that the apron strings needed to be cut. They actually used that to me, which sent me into a haka of all proportion. But
fair enough.
And because they've been in the industry longer than me, and I was naive, and he was 17, I went, well, you must know better.
Yeah, this must be how
I
it is.
listened, but I didn't I've never really towed the line so well. So I went, okay, I won't come. But then I sent my dad, and then I sent my sister. And then a whānau friend of ours went, Kimmy, shout out to Mama Kimmy. And Kimmy went over. They were going for a holiday. And I said, please go and watch them play. Just go watch them play. And so they did, her and Joel, and they had to drive miles away. They told me after the fact it was like miles and miles and miles away.
So this is Q Cup?
Q Cup.
Yep.
And they went and watched him play. And Joel took a photo. So Kimmy's standing at the end, and because her son had played with Jordan, she's calling out I te reo Māori to Jordan, which he'd heard for years, because Jordan had played with her boy, and he'd heard her voice for years. And she said he looked up, spotted her, carried on about his job. But Joel's got a photo of him coming off the field, and that was the first māmā he'd seen since he left home, and he broke his heart. And there's a photograph of Kimmy just holding him, and he's just howling in her arms. And when she showed me the photo, I cried, because I could see he went, Mom, and just melted into her. And she, to this day, is one of his favourite people. Yeah. She's going to Magic Round this weekend. Cool. So he told me yesterday, Mama Kimmy's coming over. Yeah. So at that moment, she was able to give him what I couldn't. And, I all the way through his career, I made moments like that. Whenever I couldn't, I got someone else there. I just maneuvered people whose only agenda was him around him when I couldn't be that person. So his little glimmers of sunlight in a world that is so competitive and so fast-paced and so cutthroat, really. It's a business. So it's
tough.
It's really tough. Glitz and glamour. You know, he's got nice clothes and a good haircut and expensive jewelry, and he lives in a nice house. I get it. From the outside, I get it. But if people knew the sacrifice that it takes to get, he's been on a diet since he was 15, you know, like he runs on Christmas morning so he can have a feed on Christmas Day, even now, you know, like that. It's a level of sacrifice that not everybody would be willing to give for their dream. But if you can, you'll get there. Yeah. And so for your beautiful mana, love on him as much as you can. But if it were me, prepare him mentally and emotionally for how will you navigate when you are alone? How will you communicate with someone who hasn't got your best interest at heart? Because they don't get any practice at it. We don't have a world where they have to practice that. So harden them, which is awful, but also important.
But yeah, important. I appreciate that. We've been going for a while, and I'm conscious of your time, but I'm really interested to know what are you excited about at the moment? Have you got some things in the pipeline or in the future that you're excited for or working towards or working on?
It's interesting. We are in the process of putting together a bunch of the content that we do around cultural capability, some Aotearoa New Zealand history and te reti education into online platforms.
Cool.
So you'll get me still talking like this and our content, but you'll be able to do it at your own pace and your own time.
Nice.
We see this as really beneficial for workplaces, but also I'm going to do a whole bunch of content for Māori, by Māori, a lot of that re-indigenisation stuff, like, hey, let's have a wānanga about this. You know, that if you are in the beginning or just wanting to start your journey towards strengthening your Māoritanga, here's a little bit.
Check this out.
Absolutely, because ideally we want to do that in noho. But I realised that to get to noho is a journey for some.
100%.
You know, like we put out Te Ara Tawhaiwhai and we had a few people ring us and go, I really want to do it, but I've never been in a marae. And they were Māori. And I was like, okay, maybe the jump's too big. You know, so I was like, okay, ka pai. So how do we do some little stepping stones? And then when you're ready, come and have noho with us, you know? And so we can sit and eat and share kai and laugh and waiata and those things which you can't do online. But
there's a lot of whakamā associated with that, though.
Absolutely. And it's so... if I could gift anything to Māori, it would be like, don't pick up whakamā. That's not yours.
Patua te whakamā, they say.
It's not yours.
Banish that.
Just stand in your mana and go at your own time and your own pace. So, yeah, watch out for our online portal.
Cool.
It's coming, and we're just going to keep, literally, we're kind of going to do a little bit of request. Like if people are like, hey, can you do some stuff on this? Cool, let's do that. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I'll watch the space, eh?
Yeah, hopefully. We just want to make it more accessible. Not everybody can get to stuff face to face. But we also want to honour the mana of what kanohi ki te kanohi does do and the mauri that can create. So we're not going to put everything online, but if you need a little bit to come and have a wānanga with us face to face, then cool.
Oh, cool. Yeah. I look forward to seeing all of that come together.
Choice.
Hey, thank you. Thank you so much for your time. Like I said earlier, I know you're a busy person. Clearly you've got a lot going on. And I just want to mihi to you. I want to mihi to all of the mahi that you're doing. It's so purpose-driven. It's for our people, and it's needed. It's needed. And you're doing it. Nō reira, e mihi ana ki a koe, e te tuahine. And also I just want to thank you personally for carving out time in your calendar on more than one occasion to sit with me and talk with me about some of your experiences as a māmā with a son who is obsessed with rugby league like mine is. And look, those kōrero mean a lot, and I've taken a lot away from them. So thank you very much for being so generous with your time and your mātauranga and your experiences. Really, really appreciate that. Where can people go to find Riki Consulting?
Ka pai, Riki Consultancy. We're on Facebook and Insta. And also our website's just www.rikiconsultancy.co.nz.
Cool. And they can just reach out to you?
Absolutely, yeah.
Amazing.
Anytime. I'm
Awesome.
always up for a coffee and a awhi as well.
Yep.
So shout out, and I love to have a kōrero, obviously.
Yep.
But also, I think for me, there's so many people doing the work that I get the privilege of doing. I'm a big one for, it doesn't matter who you go to. Just find people that you dig,
Yep.
whose vibe is your vibe, who you feel like you can trust.
Yep.
Because it is a journey that needs trust. And yeah, there's phenomenal people out there doing this mahi. Find one you love, find one that you can work with, and just get in the waka. That's the main thing.
100%.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a tamoko artist. There's so many amazing people out there. Find a style, find a person,
Absolutely.
go to them, and
Yeah,
get
and
into it.
actually we all fangirl on each other. Like I've never and would never, and I've never heard anyone in our industry say, oh, don't do, like we're all just like, they're awesome.
Yep.
Yeah, you should go there. They're awesome too.
Yep.
We pump each other's tires up, and we should.
should.
And because the kaupapa is what drives us, it's what gets us out of bed. So whoever you get support from, just get in the waka.
Totally. Well, that's a great place to leave it. Thank you very much. And I'll let you go and enjoy the rest of your day.
Tēnā koe.